improper fraction thing, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
And that was just on me.
Now, Michelle, did you have a question? Or like a concept or something?
Okay, I started on someone 13. I'm not sure if it was second assignment, sorry.
On these questions, when it asks for a P of 500, you just want to plug in 500 for X.
Well, maybe I was looking too hard at Pancake. Where was the numbers coming from?
Well, it gives you the equation up at the top.
Okay.
And then 500 in parentheses is the number you want to plug in.
Okay. And what about that decimal square thing? That was throwing me for a loop too.
That is just minus 0.3 times X squared. So you would square the number for X. So you would do 500 squared.
Okay.
Which is just 500 times 500.
Right.
And then you would multiply that by minus 0.3.
Okay.
Now, the goal of getting the fancy calculators, the scientific calculators, let me pull up my calculator here. You guys are going to be excited about this because it's magical. At least it is to me. Yes, that's perfect. The thing with fancy calculators is you can type in the entire expression all at once. So if I want to type in this whole thing, can you guys see this up here? I'm just going to start typing in whatever, well, that's from last semester. Whenever I see an X, I'm just going to put parentheses 500.
Okay.
Okay? So I'm going to start with 750, parentheses 500. That's going to multiply minus 0.3, parentheses 500, close parentheses. Always put the square outside parentheses. So when you want to square something, you put the number in parentheses and then the square outside. Now, if you need to raise it to a different power, because this button only does X squared, if you want to raise it to a different power, you need to use this button.
How did you get that calculator? Is that something that you have to buy, or?
It is, yes.
Oh.
Well, it is, you can take your calculator, if you have the cable that connects it to the computer, you can take your calculator and basically suck it onto the computer. But it's really complicated. And it took me forever to get it working.
But there is no way just to buy like an online version of?
No.
Okay.
You can use the TI-30X and do that, right? That's what I was doing.
On the computer?
No, on this one. Like on a regular TI-30.
Yeah, no, if you guys have the TI-30X2S, that when you type this in, it's going to look exactly the same. It's just going to go sideways. But all the parentheses and everything are all the same. Okay, so I stopped at 500 squared. I just need to do minus 1500. Okay? And then that gives me the answer. So I just put in that exact equation. I just replaced all the x's with 500 in parentheses. Okay, and that's a lot better than trying to go back and forth to like copy down on paper and doing one thing at a time. You want to do it all at once.
You also can do that in the online graphing calculator.
Can you do that?
Mm-hmm. It's going to be a flat line, and
but you can't.
And
yeah,
all of your side numbers are going to be exactly the same.
Yeah, I use the online graphing calculator.
And just type it in the y equals line. Yeah, that works. Now, for part B, when they ask about 2,000 units, that's really asking the same question. They're just stating it a different way. They're just asking you to plug in 2,000 instead of 500.
Okay.
Same thing for here, except they give you an equation. They want you to plug in 1. They want you to plug in 3. Were you guys able to figure out where the ball starts climbing by looking at the table?
Mm-hmm.
You look at the table, and then you just see where the y values stop going up, and then start going down. Let's do that real quick. We're going to do part on number 14 here.
I should have done that. I used a calculator.
The hard way, right?
Guess and check, guess and check, guess and check.
Yeah, I know. That's what I do. I didn't even think about it. You know what I mean? Think about using rapid calculator.
Yeah.
Alright, let me get all my windows arranged
Never
here.
had.
Okay, so oh my goodness, Lord. Okay, one thing you may have figured out about the calculator is it only understands X.
Yeah.
Okay, so if this problem has T in it, I just need to, and that's true for the TI calculators too, like if you press the variable button, it just automatically puts X in it. So I need to do 9 plus 9x minus 16x squared. That's my equation on mine. It's 96x, not 9x.
This looks cool. Just can trace it.
Okay, we've got 9 plus 96x minus 16x squared. Okay, x is, or t is the number of seconds after the ball is thrown. Okay, now I see kind of a parabola here that's, that U shape is called a parabola. That means the ball's going to go up, it's going to hit the top point, and then it's going to come back down again. Now I want to adjust my windows so that I can see this thing better. Okay? Now what do I want to adjust? Do I want to zoom it out, or do I just want to adjust in a certain direction? Okay? I really just need to adjust it vertically because I want to see, I'm already seeing enough here. I just want to see higher up. Okay? So before you start hitting zoom out a million times, think about what you want to see. Like here, I only need to see a little bit higher. So on the y-axis, when I click on setting, I just want to increase my maximum on the y-axis. I want to see higher. Okay? And let's make that go up to 100.
Not enough.
Not enough. Okay? Now, everybody always says, I cannot adjust the window. That's the hardest thing to do. So how do we learn how to adjust the window?
By typing in bigger numbers.
You practice.
Ah.
Okay? The only way to learn how to adjust the window is to practice. Now, I know how to do these, so it's probably quicker for me than it is for you. But the only thing you can do is just play with it and see what happens. And don't be afraid to break it. Because what happens if you just mess it up beyond all reason?
That's cool.
Standard window will take you back to the default settings. Okay? So if you're playing with it and you mess it up and it just looks crazy, click that standard window and click graph and start over. You are not going to break it. Okay, so 100 isn't quite high enough. Let's go 125. Not quite.
180.
No.
Do I have the 180?
180 works. I'm going to go 200 and that works. Okay, so this is our path of our ball. It's going up. It's hitting the maximum point, and it's coming back down and hitting 0, which is the ground. Okay? Now, how can I figure out where it stops climbing?
You do trace.
You're gonna look at the table on the right
Look at the table on the right.
and determine where the highest point is.
Okay, so x is the number of seconds, and we can ignore the negative ones because negative seconds doesn't make sense. 0 is the starting point. So 9, 89, 137, 153 is my highest point, and then I go back down to 137.
Yep.
So 153 is my highest point. That happens at 3 seconds. So my answer would be 3 is the time. Okay? Now what if yours, when you get to the bottom here, what if yours is still going up?
You can kind of look at the graph and then determine on your own where the highest point is in the middle, and then just type that number in on the right-hand side and kind of guesstimate from there.
Yeah, you can do that. It's really just kind of, it's like halfway between where it crosses here. So if I cross at 0 and 6, then halfway there is where it's at the top. Okay. But what I was going for is if you want to see more in the table, so 4 is not enough here. I want to keep time, I can change my table start. Okay? So you can change your table start to whatever you want. Okay, so let's start mine at 0. Okay? Now how do I get it to regenerate my table?
Just hit graph.
Okay, graph. Okay, whenever you want it to do something, click graph. Okay? And then it'll start my table at 0. So if you want to see a certain number here, just put that in the table start. It'll make you a table. Yes?
There was a quiz question in section 2, I believe, where it was that, what was the distance and time at 6.7?
Mm-hmm.
And so I put in increments or steps at 0.7, but I could only force it to 6.6. And then I had to interpolate between 6.6 and 7.3 to get the correct answer. Is there a way to force it to a specific decimal?
Well, you can just type in any number on this X.
Yes.
On the T table, T chart.
Like if you want to see 6.7,
Uh-huh.
you can start it at 6.7.
Well, not even there. You can also just type it in on the, like where all of these are.
Yes, you can also just type it in there, and it'll force it to
Okay.
show you that one.
Okay.
But if you're looking at for a certain number, you can just type that specific number in. You don't really need to mess with the step or. Okay. I don't know what question that was, but yeah, if they wanted decimal or anything. Okay, and just remember, whenever you change anything or you want it to change, you want it to update, just click graph. Okay, everybody following me here? Okay. All right, any other problems we need to go over? That's a good question. Anything else we're stuck on?
Can't find it. I just had one measure last. Oh, 31.
Okay.
B and C.
Okay, 31 is a good question, so let's put our, again, this is a graphing calculator question. So let me put in my equation here. Okay, so I've got 0.028 t squared, so I'm going to make that x squared, minus 4.74 t, so x, plus 211.75. And graph that.
Now, are you on equation there when you're doing that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, equation lets you put in the equation and y equals. So you want to put in, why don't you minimize this so you can see both of the same line. Okay, now drag that down so that you can see your equation. So just copy in your equation, but instead of t, you want to put in x. It doesn't understand
I
t.
don't have to put
No, because see, y equals the equals is already there. So you only start after the equals sign. Okay, now the next, do you guys need to put in your equation? Try putting your equation here.
Now, do you have, is this where you put the parentheses in?
No, just put it, just type x instead of t. Everything else will be exactly the same.
So instead of being squared, we're putting x squared?
Uh-huh. Yeah, all the t's everywhere. Anything that's not x, automatically replace it with x. Because if you put in t, it doesn't understand that, and it doesn't know how to tell you that it doesn't understand. How can you guys tell that it doesn't understand?
There's no line.
There's no line. Now, you may just not be seeing the line.
Yeah, you're not.
That's true.
How can you tell that there's no line and it doesn't understand?
The T chart's empty.
There's no table, yes. The chart is empty. If the table is empty, it does not understand something. Okay? And you need to fix it.
Now, when you're saying the table is empty, that 0, 1, 2, 3 would not show up?
No, that would show up, but the y is empty. So it's not calculating anything.
Would it be gray like that, or?
No, it'll always be gray. The numbers won't be there. Okay?
Now, when you hit after you do.
After you do that, hit graph. Now you may not see anything because viewing window 017 by 0300.
Okay, so that's the part that I got confused on.
Okay.
How do you, where does that go in the X and Y axis?
Yes.
Or-
So you've got 4 things to put in, and they've given you 4 numbers,
So
and they go in
minimum-
order.
Okay, so minimum is 0, max is
17, and then for Y, minimum is 0, max is 300.
Yep.
Now, that's what I totally don't understand.
Okay.
They're working the calculator.
So you go to your equation, go to settings. Okay. Now, they've given you 4 numbers here, 017 and 0300. This is your X min, your minimum and maximum for X. So your minimum is 0, your max is 17. You see that? They go in order. And then for Y, you've got 0 and 300. So you put in minimum is 0, max is 300. Let me show you guys up here. Okay, so for X, I've got 017, so I want to put in minimum is 0, max is 17. And then for Y, minimum is 0, max is 300. Okay? Now you don't need to mess with the tick marks unless it tells you a scale, but it usually doesn't. It'll do that automatically.
Mine's automatically set at 1.
That's okay. Just leave it there. Okay, then click graph again. Help.
Not on this, it's a general question. How does it work, for example, when I did the homework, I was just setting it up, but now we're going to do it. Okay.
Don't use substitutes.
On C?
I mean, you can take it out of there. I didn't mind that for a thing. Mine's always
Guys, this is a good question, so let me answer this question. She said, am I better off leaving it wrong or doing it again and taking a 20% hit? Doing it again. You are always better off doing it again. You will never lose points for stuff you've already done.
Even portions of it.
Even portions of it, yes. Now, if it's similar exercise, that's not true. You're going to have to redo the whole thing. The whole problem. Like if it's an ABC problem, when you hit similar exercise, it'll make you redo the whole thing.
Right, but it's only going to count the penalty on C, the portion you have.
Yes.
A and B will still be at 100%.
Yes. You can only get more points for doing stuff even if it's late.
So
Okay?
you can always go back and
Redo the ones that are late. Yes.
Even on the quizzes? Can you do
Even
that?
on the quizzes, yes.
and it will take your higher score.
It will take your higher score. Now remember with the quizzes, I'm going to knock off 20% later on, so the highest you can get is 80. So if you already got above an 80 on the quiz, you can't go higher. But if you got below 80, you can still go higher. You'd have to get 100 for it to kick back to 80.
So if I made it 85, I wouldn't want to change it?
No.
Okay.
Now, yes, so it says, it has some kind of warning about it may lower your score with the 20% penalty. That is not true. It will never lower your score. You can only get more points by doing more stuff even if it's late. You just won't get as many points as you would have. If that makes sense. So you're just not going to get the full points, but you can still get more points. Like doing all the problems is never gonna take away points. All right, so does everybody have this graph? Yes.
Now, you said there was a way to read that. I was trying to put all this together. How do I know, like you said, by looking at the grade, can you tell when the ball started dropping? How do you know that?
Looking at the numbers in the table, when those numbers start dropping. Now this is a different problem, so we're not talking about the ball dropping anymore.
I know, but it would work the same way.
Okay, so I want to use technology to find S when T is 16. Now, if I want my X value to be 16, I can generate that in the table. I'm going to make my table start 16. Now, that's because on my part B it says 16 for T. So if I want X to be 16, I want to get 16 in the table, and then it'll give me the Y value, which is S.
So do we do that in the max button then?
What?
You go
Why did
backwards.
I just clicked the wrong one. What? Let's see, yes. And I can see that. That's obviously wrong. Alright, so I just clicked the wrong one.
Now, when I go here, if I type in a 16 right there,
No, no. The table start.
16 right there.
Okay, so when T is 16, the value of S is blank thousand. Okay? So I want to take this number. It doesn't tell me to round it. So how do I round it if it doesn't tell me how to round?
Just 2 decimals, right?
Generally, if it doesn't tell you how to round, you want to keep the whole number. Okay? So I want to keep that whole number. That just means it'll end on its own. So I don't want to round anything or cut off anything if it doesn't tell me how to round. Now let's try this. See what happens.
What's wrong?
That is wrong again.
There.
Yes. So I kept the whole number. That's what it wants if it doesn't give you instructions. Yes.
What's the rule on the commas? Because sometimes I found it counting it wrong, and it didn't.
No. No commas are necessary. It is not counting it wrong because of commas. Guys, important thing here. It never counts anything wrong because of commas. If you think it's wrong because of commas, there's something else wrong. Commas are not required, but they're also not counted wrong. Now, it shows commas in the answers, but they're not required. So if you thought it was because of commas, there's something else. It's never commas. I mean commas in the numbers. Commas between numbers, yes. But I mean like in thousands, like 100,000, yeah, you don't need a comma there. Okay, now 2020, how do I do that? For part C.
Would you put that 20 in the start then?
Okay.
Well, you're gotta subtract the years.
Yes.
What subtract what years?
2020 minus 1990.
You guys see up there where it says T is the number of years after 1990?
2020 is 30 years after 1990.
Yes. There's a lot of problems like that where it gives you years and it gives you a starting year and you have to subtract it. Okay? So 2020 is 30 years after 1990, so T would be 30. Okay? So I want to put in 30 for my start value. Grab that. And I get 94.75. Pretty cool, isn't it? So a lot of work for you. And again, if you don't have rounding directions, you should not be trying to round.
Okay.
Just don't round. Christina?
Where did you get the number? Which?
So see up here where it says, on the very top of the problem, it says T is the number of years after 1990.
Right. It's
So
30.
2020 is 30 years.
Yeah.
So on my table start, I put 30, and that'll give me X equals
Oh,
30.
okay, so it's, okay. Okay.
You want to put in, you want to get 30
Yeah,
here,
I was
and then take
thinking
that number.
Well, it would, but I think that your number is just different.
Does
If
yours
you
say
type in
X?
something
Does yours say
different,
2020?
It's different, but it's gonna be.
Yours may not say 2020.
I mean, if it said they want the answer for 30, 40, 50, or 60 years after, slow
I
down.
knew this calculator, if it types in, you go to
You want to make it so you can delete that sheet.
and you go to
And especially if you want to see them like lined up together.
That's when you do your window.
And then you
It
have
always
to
says
put 50 up so if you want to do.
X max, Y min, Y max. And then you can get whatever numbers in the table by
I think she's
changing the start
the
value.
fact that she's going to reteach a class.
Intersection
Schedule.
will give you the
Schedule
intersection
with Charles, he did that
that we
same
haven't,
thing
we don't
also.
need that
It's
yet.
just a given. People
And
don't
the
know
plot points are just what you plot points, you really don't ever need that.
When reviewing and all that. Basically, so let me okay, if we decide to redo the quizzes after the due date, if our score is already 80, then it doesn't matter, right?
It will keep it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
if you have above 80, you wanna keep that.
okay, so but the homework we can do, we can fix our problems.
Now, the homework just takes 20% off of the answers that you originally got wrong and now are right,
Yes,
right?
it
Not the
only takes
entire.
20% off the new things that you did.
Okay.
But what if the answers were half right? Like I got like a percentage right.
You'll have to redo the whole thing, but if you redo the whole thing and you get more wrong than you did before, it'll prompt you to keep the earlier one. It'll say, do you want to save your higher score? And just say yes. Yes.
Yeah, 'cause right now you have, say you have 50%.
Now, if you guys click no and you save the lower score, that's your fault. I can't fix that.
So if you do get a higher score, like you get 50, you originally got 50%, and then you went and you got.
It'll keep the 50%, and then it'll take 20% off the new part.
Okay, so it'll be 50 plus whatever.
The most you can get on a late problem is 0.8. You'll get 80%. Now you know you've gotten maximum points. You can tell if you can still improve. See how it gave me 0.53 for that one because I got part of it wrong because I just put the wrong one. You can tell you got maximum points when you have a green check mark by every problem. Okay? If you've got a green check mark by every problem, then you cannot do anything else to get points because you've already gotten every single problem right. Okay? And it calculates correctly, so it knows what to give you, what points to give you. Now, I cannot edit grades on the homework, so if you get something wrong on the homework and you think it was bogus, then all you can do is redo it and get the points back. I can edit points on the quizzes. Okay, now please do not come to me and ask for points because you just did something goofy, okay? But if something on the quiz that you think is not correct, or you just think you deserve points for whatever reason, you're welcome to ask about it. Okay? But generally, if you got something wrong and it was your own mistake, I'm going to say no. Because if it's your own mistake, you need to be redoing stuff. Hmm? 24, okay. Now I think this is what we just talked about that we did in class last time. Yeah, we did this in class last time. The main thing on 24 is that you need to put parentheses around the x minus 1 when you graph it. Okay, so when I graph this, you want to do 5 divided by parentheses x minus 1. Okay, now the reason I'm graphing this is not to see the graph, but to see the table. Okay? So I really don't care about this graph, I just want to see the table. And I want my table to start at -2. So let's make our table start at -2. Then I can see -2 through 4, which is what I want here.
How did you put it in?